Welcome to Magic Boy fans.
Today we're doing something a little different. Instead of digging into reports or data, we're going to unpack a really powerful story, a poem called The Ballad of the Black Magicians. We're going to take apart its central metaphor piece by piece and see what it tells us about how power really works. Right off the bat, you get these lines. This is the chorus, and wow, it just pulls you right into this world of shadows and control. This line is pretty much the heartbeat of the whole poem, and it sets this dark, foreboding tone. It's like an invitation into a story that feels like a fantasy, but at the same time, kind of hits a little too close to home. So, let's get one thing straight before we dive in. Our goal here is to understand the ideas, the archetypes inside the poem. We're exploring a metaphor, right? We're not trying to point fingers and say, oh, this magician is this specific person. Nah, we're just looking at the mechanics of power that the story itself lays out for us.
Okay, so let's get to it. First question, who exactly are these black magicians? Well, the good news is the ballad doesn't make us guess. It gives us a really clear picture of who we're dealing with.
Here's the definition you can pull straight from the text. So a black magician isn't some dude in a pointy hat waving a wand. It's way more real than that. They're people who use three main tools: a ton of money, a web of lies, and a total willingness to cheat to get into power. Their magic, if you want to call it that, isn't supernatural. It's bought and paid for.
And this slide just breaks it down perfectly. The poem says they're cloaked in golden fire. What a killer image, right? It's like their wealth is both their armor and their weapon. Their motivation, pure greed, just feeding dark desire. And their main tool for ruling is just straight up deception. But the real kicker is that last point. Their power isn't real. They don't earn the crown, they literally buy it.
All right, so now we know who they are. The next big question is, how do they do it? The ballad calls their methods spells, but what they really are is a very clear, very strategic playbook for taking over a whole society.
And check this out. It's like a four-step plan. First, you take control of the story. You sell the truth for lies. Then, you gut the future. You get rid of education and replace it with distraction. You trade the schools for taverns. Step 3, you back it all up with muscle, walking around with thugs and killers. And finally, you keep everyone in line with fear, with the threat of violence just under the surface, that dance with silver daggers.
Oof, this line really hits hard because it connects what they do to who they are. The poem is basically saying these rulers aren't just evil, they're hollow. Their power isn't built on being smart or having a vision, it's just about being the loudest person in the room, shouting with all the misplaced pride that comes from an empty mind.
So we've got the rulers, we've got their playbook. But what's the cost? What actually happens to a country living under these so-called spells? The poem paints a pretty bleak picture, but it's a very clear one.
This chart really lays out the brutal math at the heart of the story. It's a series of terrible trades. Truth gets swapped for lies. Schools, the places of learning, get swapped for taverns, places of distraction. The dreams of an entire generation become a sacrifice, and in the end, life itself gets traded for death. Every single trade just pushes a society deeper and deeper into decay.
And here's what that looks like for the people on the ground. Truth gets completely shut down, locked in dungeons. The kids, the next generation, are broken. Most people just go along with it. The faithful bend the knee. But here's the most tragic part. The most desperate people are forced to actually celebrate their own oppressors. The hungry bring them garlands. It's a chilling portrait of a nation that's been totally silenced. Okay, so after all that darkness, you'd think this story is just headed for a totally grim ending, right? But the very last chorus throws in a huge game-changing twist. This is the turning point of the entire ballad.
See, throughout the entire poem, the chorus has always ended with this line. It's all about resignation, about passive acceptance. It's like saying, yep, we're in chains and we're just gonna live with it. And honestly, that feeling of helplessness, that's the secret sauce that keeps the magicians in power.
The poem itself just makes you ask this question. You hear that line of defeat over and over and over, and you're just conditioned to expect it one last time. But the ballad is about to pull the rug out from under us. And there it is, the knockout punch. The final chorus makes this one tiny but absolutely massive change. And still we bow becomes, but we shall rise. The passive shame is suddenly transformed into an active choice to break it. This is the exact moment the spell shatters.
And this, right here, is the whole point of the poem. The black magician's power was never really magic at all. It was like a house of cards, and it was entirely built on the people just going along with it. The second the people decide to stop bowing, the moment their collective will shifts, the whole corrupt system just collapses. The shame isn't a curse, it's a condition you can choose to reject.
So the ballad leaves us with one last massive question to chew on. It shows us what happens, that incredible shift from we bow to we shall rise. But it kind of leaves the how and the why up to us to figure out. It makes you think, what is that spark? What is that powerful alchemy that turns a bunch of silent, suffering people into a single, unified voice demanding change? And that's a question that echoes far, far beyond the pages of any poem.
Thank you very much for watching. Please like and subscribe my channel.